He saw the monitor image and thought it was the worst thing he had ever seen. He was running before he understood it was the best thing that could have happened. The monitor was on his phone. Connor Newen had the app set to notify him if the camera detected motion in the nursery after midnight. He had been asleep for 2 hours on the couch when his phone buzzed at 2:04 a.m. He looked at the screen. His Siberian Husky, Loki, had his face pressed directly toward his 7-month-old son's face. From the camera angle, the dog's nose was perhaps 4 inches from Jasper's open mouth. The baby appeared to be sleeping. The dog was completely still. Connor was on his feet and down the hall in under 15 seconds. He opened the nursery door. Loki's ears swiveled toward him without his body moving. The dog was focused entirely on Jasper, positioned with both front paws on the crib rail, muzzle directly over the baby's face, inhaling in slow, deliberate pulls. Connor said his name. Loki glanced at him and looked back at the baby. He crossed the room, reached for Loki's collar, and then he stopped, because Jasper's breathing, which he had been registering peripherally as background, was wrong. Not absent, not stopped, but wrong. A slight, effortful catch in the exhale, a hesitation between breaths that had no business being there in a sleeping infant. Connor put his hand on Jasper's chest. He counted breaths for 30 seconds. He called the pediatric nurse line at 2:07 a.m. The nurse on duty asked 3 questions and then said, "Take him in. Don't wait until morning." Jasper had RSV, respiratory syncytial virus, in its early progression. His oxygen saturation at the urgent care clinic at 2:51 a.m. was 93%. Normal for his age is 95 or above. The pediatrician on duty, Dr. Marcus Osei, explained that RSV in infants under 12 months can progress silently. The lungs work harder without the infant displaying visible distress. Parents see a sleeping baby. The breathing change is subtle enough that most adults don't register it unless they're specifically listening for it. Dogs register it differently. Respiratory compromise changes the chemical composition of exhaled breath, the ratio of oxygen to CO2, the presence of specific inflammatory byproducts, the shift in VOC compounds that accompanies the early stages of bronchial inflammation. A dog's olfactory system processes these changes at concentrations that are, by multiple orders of magnitude, below human perceptible threshold. Loki had detected the shift in Jasper's breath chemistry before the oxygen saturation dropped to a level that would have shown on any monitor. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Dr. Osei said the sentence that Connor would remember for the rest of his life. The fact that you came in when you did gives us options that we wouldn't have in another 2 hours. Connor sat in the waiting room while they monitored Jasper and thought about the camera image, the blue-eyed dog's face over the baby's face, the inhaling that looked from a distance like a threat. He had been running toward what he thought was danger. He had been running toward the only alarm that was working. Has your dog ever positioned themselves over your sleeping child in the middle of the night? What did you do? Tell us in the comments. These stories matter more than people realize. Jasper came home on a Friday. He was placed on a wedge to help with breathing, monitored every 4 hours, and recovered completely within 8 days. Loki resumed his position outside the nursery door the first night home. Connor left the door open 6 inches so the dog could see in from the hallway. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never ask for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. At 3 a.m. on the second night home, Connor woke and checked the monitor. Jasper sleeping, steady breaths, normal rise and fall, Loki lying in the hallway, head up, watching the door. Both of them doing exactly what they were supposed to do. Next, The story of a dog who started sleeping in a spot he'd never chosen before, 3 weeks before the diagnosis that explained everything. The research on what dogs detect during respiratory distress is not new. Studies published in veterinary and human medical journals over the past 2 decades have documented that dogs respond to chemical changes in exhaled breath with a reliability that precedes mechanical sensor detection, the compounds released during RSV progression, specific cytokines, inflammatory volatile organics, shifts in the CO2 ratio, alter the olfactory profile of an infant's breath in ways that trained and untrained dogs alike have been documented responding to. Loki had no formal training. Nobody had taught him to monitor Jasper's breathing. He had spent 7 months in close proximity to a human whose chemistry he had mapped in the way that dogs map everything. Continuously, passively, completely. When that chemistry shifted, he responded the way he had been built to respond. He went to the face. He stayed there. He waited until someone came. Connor installed a pulse oximeter monitor after Jasper came home, the kind that clips to an infant's foot and sends readings to a phone. He tested it against what Loki had detected. The monitor would have alarmed at approximately 91% oxygen saturation. Loki had come into the bedroom at 2:04 a.m. Jasper's saturation at urgent care at 2:51 a.m. was 93%. The dog had been awake and moving before the saturation crossed the monitor's alarm threshold. He had detected the slide, not the bottom. That detail stayed with Connor, not because it was useful. The monitor was essential, and he said so to anyone who asked, but because it told him something about what Loki had been doing those 7 months at the foot of the bed, in the hallway, in the nursery. He had not been resting. He had been working.